Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I can't pull it up on my computer for some reason. I don't know what's happening with that.
There you are. We see you.
Yeah, I'm on my phone and trying to pull it up on my computer. It won't. I don't see that message.
Do you see the app? Do you have the app?
I have the app on, but on my phone, it went directly to my calendar. And when I just hit the button to say John on my calendar, but it doesn't give me that option on my computer. I don't know what's up with that.
Ms. Felder, I hope you can hear me. I wanted to let you know that the speaker is on the line. He's called in, so he's ready whenever the committee's ready.
Hello, Brother Tommy.
Okay, I'm going to try to go out and come back in.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, you're loud and clear then. I'm glad I remembered to charge my phone up.
Really?
Are you on your phone or computer?
I'm on my phone. The computer app I never could get to work quite right. But the phone.
Yeah.
The same thing here. Everybody had a pretty good Memorial Day?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
I've enjoyed watching you on Facebook with your religious music, which has been great.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. You know, I've been doing that for 12 years every morning. And someone just mentioned to me, said, Ted, why don't you just go live? I've been calling every morning for 12 years, not for 12 years, since 2012 on my prayer call. And just went live right after Easter. And it's been pretty interesting. It's been pretty interesting, you know.
I've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I look forward to doing it in the mornings. Yeah. Let's see here. So who are we waiting on?
We're waiting on them to get Ray so she can come in.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been in touch with Ms. Felder via text, and she's trying everything she can. Just to let y'all know, Drew is trying to see if he can do some kind of workaround for her. So we're working feverishly right now to connect her.
Well, I got a few minutes, Pierce, so don't feel like you got to hurry because of me. I'll just be working at my desk, okay?
Very good, Speaker. We should go on in just a second. Thank you, Doug.
I'm still trying to get on my computer.
Well, while we're waiting, I could let everyone know yesterday I listened to Advance ED, which is the State Department's working group to address the COVID-19 situation. And one of the things that they're examining is at the moment, the summer reading camps. They're going to call them ARCs, accelerated reading camps, and it's geared toward kindergarten through third graders. So they're coming out with their final recommendations for how those are going to work. Ms. Felder, is that you?
Well, I think everything that
Oh.
Ooh, there you are.
I can. Okay, let's do that, and so we can get started because the speaker's waiting.
I'm gonna put mine on speaker.
Oh, I got it.
Did you get it
If she wants to talk, she'll just talk.
on your computer?
Okay. Are we ready to go then?
Got me on the mic up. We're good.
Okay, Ms. Felder, I think we've gotten a workaround. So are you ready?
I am. Thank you all for your patience. I apologize that it's just not working.
Got a little feedback there.
Got a little feedback. Okay.
But I do thank the committee for all being with us. I think everyone's had time to test their microphones to make sure that everything's working. I do want to thank everyone for being here, and I also want to welcome all of the stakeholders that are following us online and watching the meeting today.
Well,
To get started real quick, and thank you,
To
Mr.
get
Speaker. I
started.
know you're on the line as well. And of course, Chair Allison is with us this morning, Representative Terry Stringer, Representative Terry Alexander, and Representative Wendy Brawley. And first, we'll ask for Representative Brawley to give us a short invocation to start our meeting.
Thank you, Representative Felder. If we could just bow. God, we ask for your presence here today. We ask that you guide and anoint us. We ask for a special blessing on our leadership, both nationally and in this state. We ask that our deeds, our efforts be pleasing in your sight. These and all the blessings we ask in your holy and majestic name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
very
very
much,
welcome.
Representative Brawley. This time, I believe we have Speaker Lucas that is on the
This
line
time, I think we can speak.
that would like to address the committee and give us a charge for what he would like us to work on in the upcoming weeks and months as we prepare education to come back after the COVID-19. Mr.
To
Speaker.
address the committee and Mr. Speaker.
All the committee meetings for giving of your time today, and I'm certain many days down the road as we look at public education and how COVID-19 has affected public education in this state. I want to also thank LSA for putting together Microsoft Teams forums, our virtual platform that allows us to meet safely in our homes or places of business and not have to travel to the block building during these times to talk about issues that are specific to COVID-19. I often say that we in the House are tremendously lucky in that we don't have really any committees as the Senate has, but we are member rich. 124 members, all of our members wanting, desiring to move the state forward, all of them wanting to serve committees, all of them wanting to give those committees their expertise. and you have been selected because of your expertise in this area. The charge to this committee is clear. It's twofold. The result of the work that will come from the charge will be much different. First, we want to evaluate the effects of disruptions caused by COVID-19 on South Carolina's public education system. And secondly, we want to identify ways to provide necessary relief, which will then be given by recommendation for consideration by the House of Representatives. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that I know that there are groups out there who are working on all of this issue, all of these issues. What your task is to get all of that information, all of the hard work that other groups are doing, and synthesize that into a report that will give us a pathway or a goal for helping us deal with the COVID-19 issues that are facing the South Carolina public education system. I know Chairwoman Webb and every member of this committee will take the time to hear the concerns from all those involved in the education community, from our great superintendent of education to our teachers, our administrators, our parents, and our students, and everyone involved in public education in South Carolina who wants to be heard. Through a review of existing regulations and statutes, I also entrust you will come up with solutions to some of the most urgent obstacles we face in South Carolina. I do look forward to receiving this committee's recommendations, although I understand that the task of this committee is large, and I don't expect those recommendations next week. We have to act quickly, but we want to be right. In the words of the legendary John Wood, I need you to be quick, but I don't need you to hurry, because I need what you give me to, in fact, be a pathway forward for South Carolina. As we all know, education has been a top priority in the House and will remain so during these trying times. All of you participated in our reform efforts, and one of the questions we want to ask is obviously how will the COVID-19 issues that we were dealing with affect our reform issues. Our goal in the reform package is essentially the same as the goal that we have for this committee. We must work to ensure that every child in this state can access the education he or she deserves, that every teacher may be able to do his or her job to the best of their capabilities, and that every parent is equipped with all resources necessary to aid in their child's success. I want to thank you all for your willingness to tackle the task I've laid before you, and know that not only I, but the rest of the House and the people of this state appreciate your hard work on this issue. Again, you will have much information that you will have to go through. You will have to tell the body what we have learned on this issue, but more importantly, you will have to identify the problems and the residual issues that we face going forward. You will have to be able to present solutions to these problems, and those solutions have to be, one, dealing with what we know are the problems, and two, and most importantly, but much more difficult, to come up with solutions to the problems that are yet to arise. So again, let me wish each of you a good morning. Godspeed on your journey through COVID-19 public education. Committees in the House have started meeting on various issues. We have a COVID-19 committee that's met on agriculture. We have a COVID-19 committee dealing with small business, COVID-19 committee dealing with regulations. We're going to form a COVID-19 committee to deal with the judiciary. So as the Senate has appointed a few groups of senators to deal with these issues, I'm so lucky that we have a House that is not only has a large membership, but an involved membership and a very informed membership who wants to work on these committees. Thank you all again for your agreeing to be on this committee, and I will look forward to the report that you put out. Thank you, Chairwoman Felder and members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, one. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That kind of sets the framework for where this committee is going to head. Hopefully soon we will be able to meet in an area. We may have to socially distance in some meeting room, but I do think with the charge from the speaker and having listened to the Accelerate Ed meetings that Superintendent Spearman and her group have been working on, perhaps the thing for us to do is break this up and each of us take a section. I believe the Accelerate Ed, and Mr. McNair, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they broke it up into like 5 different areas.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm thinking that that might be something we could do because time is of the essence. We're not going to have months to deal with this because the start of school is right around the corner, unfortunately. We're going to have to work diligently. We're going to have to work very tirelessly to come up with some answers. And I think on my behalf, and I'd like to hear from the other representatives, I think we need to give Mr. McNair some indication of who do we want to hear from first. I think if staff will share with us the report that Accelerate Ed put out, because it's very comprehensive. It goes into detail about how they're going to do summer programs and how they're going to try to work with the students that are going to be behind, of course. I would like to see us kind of take that report and then build on it. They have started the wheel. They put several spokes in the wheel. I think now we can take that and we can help them build on that from the legislative viewpoint in looking at what regulation, what statutes, what do we need to immediately either eliminate, suspend, modify to allow the State Department to do what's best in educating our children.
Where is that report that Accelerate Ed put together? You have that, Pierce?
Yes, sir, I do. It's a at the moment, if I recollect correctly, the report is a series of recommendations from the various subcommittees. It's nothing finalized yet, but I do have it. I'll be happy to share that with you.
Yeah. I think that would help us. It would help me because I haven't been following Accelerated Ed, and I'm not familiar with those subcategories.
Yes, sir.
That they put in place. So it might be good if you would share that document with us. Well, you know, knowing that it's just recommendations coming from Accelerated Ed.
Yes, sir. Not only that, and Ms. Felder mentioned this, but I think it's important to know the good thing is, yes, it does have some recommendations in it. However, it is limited to the summer, the ARC, the accelerated reading camps they want to put in this summer. But it does give a preliminary blueprint for what we may be able to do come the fall. But yes, sir. As soon as this meeting is over, I'll find that link and I'll send y'all what they have produced so far from that committee.
Madam Chair, do you know what those 5 committees are off the top?
I do not off the top of my head. And listening to them, I know they dealt with, the summer program, transportation. There's been a lot of discussion with DHEC and the State Department on using our buses. How many children are we going to be able to transport on a single bus? I don't know that we have a lot of answers because the COVID is changing daily. So the CDC just came out, I think, the beginning of this week, where now they've determined that the virus does not live as long on surfaces as they once thought. So we are getting some positive results coming from the CDC. So I know that the State Department will continue to work not only on the summer, because it is very fluid, it's changing every day, but they are also now looking at what they're going to respond to with the fall and with the start of school. We've got some districts that want to push their summer reading camps. You know, in the past, that was for third graders, the summer reading. We're looking at expanding that K through 3 at least to try to help those children get caught up and ready. Some of our districts want to push that camp into August and then have the start of their calendar school year not start until after Labor Day. Other districts want to maintain the same schedule. So I think there's still a lot of discussion amongst our state superintendent for all the districts, as well as Molly Spearman, to decide what is really best. And are we going to have one unified date, or are we going to allow districts much more flexibility this year?
Ms. Felder, if I may interrupt, I do happen to have the names of those committees that Representative Alexander asked about.
Yes.
They're the Building and Student Services Subcommittee. That's one. So Building and Student Services. The second is Instructional. And the third one is Operations. So those are the three. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, please. Thank you.
You mentioned, giving suggestions as to who we might want to hear from, so that we can kind of assess what it is that we can do. And I think it would be important to hear from Superintendent Spearman, hear from probably an administrator of a small district, and then perhaps an administrator of a larger district, because we all know that there's a variety of different things that impact those districts. And I would like to hear something about the big elephant in the room even now, and that's the lack of broadband. So who can we reach out to? I know there are some efforts that are going on even in my district to expand it. But in the event that we find ourselves in the fall back into a situation where schools aren't opening across the state, we need to have at least considered what it would take to address issues of lack of broadband. So those are just three areas to me that I think we can probably incorporate in some of the accelerated ed committees that they already have. I'm sure they've addressed those issues. But since we will have a unique opportunity to hear from individuals that may not have participated on the accelerated ed committees, I think if we do nothing but hear from two different administrators from two different size districts, that would be valuable as we go about trying to figure out what regulations need to be eased, changed, or maybe eliminated initially so that they can function more properly at the local level.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Brawley. And in looking at somewhat of a time frame, and a question for staff, in allowing the State Department to relax regulations and relax rules or totally eliminate them this year, is that something that this committee would make a recommendation and then it would actually take legislative action?
Yes, ma'am. This committee could certainly look at which statutes or regulations could be waived or suspended or amended, whichever would be applicable. But yes, ma'am, if we're going to change statute, there would have to be some force of law behind it to do that. Regulations are a little more flexible in regard to emergency regulations, but I believe that they have a time span, they have a lifespan, and these emergency regulations end. So I'm sure the department will be asking for some kind of guidance from the General Assembly in regard to another waiving of regulations for the upcoming school year, because I don't believe with the state of emergencies ending, the previous waivers would still be valid.
So that's a serious charge for this committee as the legislative branch of government for us to come up with a request, if you will, of the General Assembly to make these changes in support of our State Department.
Yes, ma'am.
So could we add a fourth to the list of the 3 that Accelerate Ed use? Could we possibly add a fourth that would be regulations and statutes?
Yes, ma'am. And I think I can give us a head start on that. Katie Nilgis with the State Department earlier on provided a very helpful document regarding statutes and regulations that needed to be waived for public education. And I can provide that document that she sent to me to this committee as well. So that way we'll be able to see what was requested to be waived in the middle of the school year, and we can see how that would apply to the beginning of the school year if necessary.
And didn't we do some waivers in the, some flexibility for waivers of regulation in the CR?
Yeah, there was definitely some flexibility. Yes, ma'am.
So I think they're already exercising some of that flexibility.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. They needed that CR to give them some flexibility before the school year ended. So I think the speaker's charge, we could be looking at the effect of the waivers in this school year that we're finishing up, and then prospectively what that might need to be going forward as an idea for the committee.
I think so, definitely.
I'd like to.
Yes, Chairman Allison.
I have a question. In going forward with these committees, I agree with Representative Brawley that I would love to hear from and think it would be beneficial for all of us to hear from Superintendent Spearman, her immediate plans and the future plans, because I think there's been, in watching Accelerate Ed and also Accelerate SC, I think their reports that are coming back deal mainly with summer camps and that kind of thing. I'd be really interested in hearing what the plans are going forward. I think hearing from a small a rural area school and all, and a larger school like Greenville or whatever, and then you're exactly right. No matter what happens in the fall, whether we're able to come back or not, we also have great potential for tornadoes and hurricanes, and there may be loss of other days here. And I think broadband in this state is tremendously important to all areas of our state. And with monies coming in from the feds and all, if an importance is not put on that, and I know that that's been talked about in both of these Accelerate Ed and Accelerate SC, to be able to move forward, have concerns and would love to hear from them about, we're talking about summer camps right now for K-3, but we have a tremendous amount of children that have not shown up for class since March. And that is not only K-3, but it's also other grades, middle school, high school, and that kind of thing. And how we're going to approach that to have them ready. Because if we go back to face in the fall, we're going to have 2 families of children. We possibly are going to have children that haven't had school for almost a half a year, and then children that need to press on. So I think hearing from them, you're right, Ms. Brawley, it would be great to hear where they are on their plans and what it's going to take to go face to face in the fall and how we're going to handle that. Because I think that that's going to have a lot of impact on regs and statutes when it comes to testing and knowing where we are and those kind of things.
Madam Chair,
Please.
we need to basically, and I know it's not under our jurisdiction, but somewhat it is, we need to get a handle on how they are spending that money. Because we all know that it's going to take extra money if we are going to simplify social distancing. For instance, right now, I think we're 45, maybe 50 or 60 kids on a school bus. If we're talking about social distancing, 45 or 50 kids won't be getting on a school bus at one time. So you're talking about almost doubling the sizes of the school buses, looking at classrooms, again, this broadband thing. So we need to take a look at that CARES money as well to see how it's being distributed, not only for the summer, but moving forward, and kind of help her to help prioritize education here in this state, basically.
Thank you, Representative Alexander. And I think that's a very good point. We've got to make sure that we use this money the most wise and efficient way that we can. Thank you, Chairman Allison. I am concerned about those. The number I've heard is about 40,000 of our students that have had no contact with a teacher or principal or picked up a work packet into their lesson plan since March 16th. That is a scary number. I am very concerned that these are the kids that most need to be involved in these summer camps. But if the parents have not responded, or the grandparents or the guardian or whomever the adult in their life is, has not responded to anything since March the 16th, do we really know that we know where they are, if they're willing to come in the summer and get caught up? So one thing I would like, and I would like to make this with the permission of the committee today, is for us to find out in every district how many students and at what grade level are those students that you've had no contact with since March the 16th, because we need that database. That group needs to be first and foremost for us to reach out to with these summer programs. So if the address that's on file from the beginning of the school year, if that's incorrect, we need to find the new address. If that phone number is invalid, then we need to find a new phone number. We need to account for these children because a lot of them, I'm sure, have moved, due to the situation being what it is, and mom or dad had to continue to work, so the kids are grandparents. But we need to know that, because we need to make sure that we have available services to provide wherever these children are, in whatever community or school district they're going to be in.
I would agree with that. And I think that's right on point, because there are a lot of students who live in communities where the parent was an essential worker and they didn't have the flexibility of meeting the Wi-Fi bus when it showed up in their committee for those 2 hours because they were at work. So as a result, they have not been able to be in contact educationally with e-learning the way that they should. I don't know whether a lot of them moved or not. I would suspect you're probably right. Some of them did, but I think to our horror, we're going to find that many of them are still here and that they have just simply not been able to connect as other students have because of their environment, because of the situation that they're living in. I don't know. I know we talk about contact tracers for from a health standpoint. We've got census people dispatched, and districts do have counselors and people who actually whose job it is to go into the community and deal with special needs for parents. And I think as we ask them for that data, we can ask what is the plan for finding these children and reaching out to them in the appropriate way. Because I think if we don't do it in the most appropriate way, we will lose these kids forever because
Sure.
their parents will be turned off by the process, and they're already probably scared that they've not responded. And so I agree. I say all that to say I agree with you 100%. And if we could not only just ask about them, but find out if there is an ongoing effort to bring them back into the fold, to bring them back into the process. And if so, what can we do at the state level to help facilitate that?
True. Agree.
All right. So is the committee in agreement, Representative Stringer? Are you in agreement that we ask the State Department to provide us with this information, and not only how many children, but also what steps have been taken to locate these children?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm also curious about a clear delineation between the authority that the state has versus the local districts. Greenville just met to try to come up with their own opening plan, and it hit the news yesterday. And I'm sure it's going to create a lot of confusion if you have districts trying to create their own plans while we're trying to create one on the state level. So curious about the legal authority there.
Mr. Stringer, you bring up a really good point. If I may, Madam Chair, the state certainly does have a framework, a legal framework through which the districts must operate. But as I was listening to Accelerate ED yesterday, and I certainly don't want to speak for that committee, this is just to someone in the audience listening, but it seems like a lot of decisions are going to be left at the local level.
Right.
So I think the General Assembly is going to be asked to provide a wide path down which these districts can walk, but they certainly, at least for now, aren't expected to walk single file. They're going to be going in all different directions. So it's just a matter of how wide of a road do we want to allow.
I see. Thanks.
In looking at this, and I would very much like everyone's opinion, if we broke into each of us, and I'll kind of help each group, but if we did building and student services, and then we did another focus on instruction and broadband, and then we did operations and student accountability, finding these students, where are they, what happened to them, and then regulations and statutes that need to be changed. Would each of you be willing to take one of those areas and really dive into it and come back with a discussion for the committee?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Would anyone like to volunteer for one specific area?
I would. I'll go first. I would like the building and instructional and broadband.
Okay.
What was that last one you had, Madam Chair? I didn't write it down.
Regulations and statutes. What does the General Assembly need to recommend that we waive or alter?
Regulations and statutes, I would deal with that. I think we are over-regulated and over-statute. I would take that one.
All right, wonderful. All right. Do Representative Allison or Chair Allison, do you have a preference? And
No, I'll take whatever you want to give me.
Representative Stringer?
Yeah, same here.
Okay. How about then if I ask Representative Stringer to do buildings and student services, and Chair Allison, if you would take operations and student accountability. I think they're working so closely with the Spartanburg districts, and then of course the giant district of Greenville. And I know that the State Department has started asking their local districts about these children, but I think with that, the sooner we find where these children are and which schoolhouse they're going to show up to, I think the better we can meet their needs. And the other thing I've heard is 40,000 children. I don't have a breakdown of what age that is.
Madam Chair, the sooner we get the superintendent on and have her to explain that to us, the better we can in moving forward in some of these areas. I would love to hear what she has to say, you know, this whole gamut, you know, and let her explain to us those recommendations that she's presenting to the full community. Kind of explain to us what that all means. The sooner we get that information from her, I think the better we are, and we can probably see a little clearer in terms of what direction we might need to deal with and address. But I think it's imperative that she comes before us quickly, very, very quickly.
Great. And I know that her schedule is very, very busy attending all of the different Accelerate SC and Accelerate Ed meetings, as well as talking with the superintendents throughout the state, because there is a lot we're all juggling right now to try to do the best we can for our state's children. How often does this group feel we need to convene?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Also, in tagging on to Representative Alexander's, I do think that it would be good to go ahead and hear from a small and a large, and also hear something about the broadband. In listening to these committees as they've met, as Mr. McNair has said, there is being given a lot of flexibility to the districts to sort of come up with their plan. And it would be very interesting to hear from our smaller, maybe more rural districts to see what they're having to deal with in order to have their plan. And also, as Representative Stringer has said, Greenville basically has their plan in place, both for their summer school. I think they're going to have like 49 sites for summer school. And then they were also talking about, you know, coming back into the district and face-to-face and that kind of thing. And that's great for them that they've been able to move on down their journey of getting back to face-to-face. But I have a feeling that there are districts out there that are going to be struggling with this in many ways. So I think the quicker we hear where we are, both for the summer school and then to ask the questions, where are you planning wise when it comes to if we go back face to face? Are we looking at a blended situation? Because if we're looking at a blended situation, there are going to be children that need to be taken care of, whether it's an iPad or whether it's, you know, the Wi-Fi, broadband, that kind of thing. We're also talking about feeding those students through the summer school and all. So I agree that the quicker we can hear from them and ask our questions and see where they are, the better we know how to go forward in our committees.
Absolutely, absolutely right, Madam Chair. And I think Senate would want to come meet with legislators. I would think, because we're going to have to shape that she is going to do. And Madam Chair, Allison, you're right. Greenville can move forward because they have the resources. What about those rural or poor school districts who are going to be depending on state government, on us, to help them move forward? So it is imperative that we get a handle on this and see what the superintendent is and help her move this thing forward, if we have to nudge her a little bit, like you said, those districts who has the resources, and they not necessarily need to wait on the state for direction as they're doing in the upstate. I'm glad to hear that. But those smaller districts whose only money comes from the state, which might be cut next year. So we're gonna have to take a look at that and how we adjust. That's why I'm concerned about all the monies that the CARE is sending down and how that money is being allocated, not just for the summer, but from now on, basically. And how much is that and how that money can be spent and where is it going to be spent? I think we need to get a handle on that as soon as we can.
I know one of the questions that Representative Felder asked was, how often do you think we need to meet? I hear a lot of feedback. Do y'all hear that?
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's mixing a drink.
See, I thought it was a printer, so.
Can y'all hear me?
I don't know. I think there's an urgency in what we need to do. So I am perfectly willing to meet at least once a week to hear from these folk that we want to hear from, and we might have to do it more than once if it's a scheduling issue to get the district folk in that we want to hear from a small and a large district, a struggling district in a rural community, and one, like you said, in Greenville that has a plan that maybe can be replicated in some of these other larger districts. So I'm perfectly willing to meet once a week or more, but I think we need a minimum of once a week.
At this point, then, would it be the will of the committee to ask staff to reach out to the superintendent and to a small district and a larger district and see if we can set a meeting up next week at their convenience, whatever time works for them?
Yeah.
Is there any time next week that our committee, someone has a conflict next week? But everybody will look at their calendar.
I'm clear.
I am too right now.
Are we talking about next Wednesday?
Wednesday or Thursday, I think.
Thursday. I have one meeting at 9. Matter of fact, with my superintendent on next Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Can we do it Wednesday after your meeting?
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
Okay,
so that would be 10 o'clock like we did today.
Give me 10:30.
Okay. I mean, the Wednesday or Thursday is fine with me either way.
Me too. Either way. I'm good either way.
About everybody else.
Okay. Then we will reach out to the superintendent and see if Wednesday midday or Thursday will work for her.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Representative Felder? I know that we want to hear from a small district, but from our committee that, the meetings that we were doing this year, I would love for that struggling or rural district to be Williamsburg County. And I say that because that district is probably emblematic of a lot of the problems that some of the rural districts face with, not having access to various things, struggling already because, as you know, the Department of Ed was already on site there from our previous meetings. I don't know how we were going to identify the other district other than Greenville, but I think Williamsburg would give us probably the rawest look at how desperate maybe a situation may be in those districts that are struggling. It's rural, poor, and has had academic concerns and board concerns. So I just throw that out as a suggestion.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Absolutely. Would be good to have that struggling that they've been going through prior to this and how they're going to handle it going forward.
Now,
and all.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, I know the State Department has been very involved with the CARES funding and distributing that money because the CARES funding, has the certain pots of money.
Mm-hmm.
So districts are going to have to do an application verifying how they're going to spend that money to make sure it meets the qualifications that the federal government put into that CARES Act. So I know the State Department is working on that, and we could probably get an update on the CARES funding.
Right. And Madam Chair, if I understand correctly, there are actually two pots of money, one coming to the State Department, which they are responsible for allocating out and that kind of thing. But the actual CARES Act money that is coming to the state, which is coming through the governor, and of which we as the General Assembly have talked about, those monies are, there is a plan that Accelerate SC is putting out where they're sort of directing that money in their plan. That is what we as the General Assembly are going to end up having to, agree with the governor and that kind of thing. So with that in mind, I know that this already, the superintendent had asked for X amount of money from that pot to go to summer school, of which actually the plan doesn't show that she's getting what she's asked for. So there's two pots of money there, and she can talk about that when she comes, and the reasoning behind her ask, and maybe the reasoning behind that she didn't get the full amount from the actual CARES Act that's coming through the governor's office and through us. So it will enlighten us, Representative Alexander, to your point, it will enlighten us on how the money is being directed through the plan that will be coming to us, and whether or not you, this committee would feel after going through their intensive committees as to whether or not we need to get on board for asking more or whatever, that kind of thing. So I think it would be good, right, to get those reports.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I think then we'll look to staff to give us some direction as to what is a convenient time for the superintendent and also for the two various district representatives to come and talk with us next week. I don't know whether that meeting can be held in person yet or not. I know that they are moving forward with opening up the plot building with some different restrictions. So it's possible soon we will actually be able to gather together in a meeting room. But I would ask staff, Mr. McNair, and know that Ms. Lee is on the call as well, if we could maybe reach out and check with them and then maybe email the members of the time of the meeting and whether or not that meeting can actually be in person, or if again we will try to do a virtual meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me raise another question here about input from individuals. And Madam Chair Allison, you mentioned the governor's office. Would it be feasible, you all think, to have Melanie Barton, who now is the governor's education person, to come before us? Because apparently the governor's going to have some say-so into how those dollars are spent based on what you just said. I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe have her come and say, okay, this is what the governor's looking at based on whatever reasons, since he is going to control some of that money and his rationale for wanting to control it.
Well, the reports that I was speaking of have come from his Accelerate South Carolina. As you know, they were broken up into groups too, and each group brought a comprehensive report, and then they looked at the monies, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Pierce, that they will come forth with a proposal on how they see the money being spent. And then, of course, the General Assembly is going to have input into that too. But I do agree with you, and I don't want to speak out of turn, Madam Chair, but I do agree that Melanie probably can give a very comprehensive overview of Accelerate SC and their plans and everything. And she may be able to really branch out into the broadband area of what the committee talked about in looking at with public-private utilities and providers and that kind of thing. Because to be perfectly honest with you, that is a plan that needs to be put together and executed as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. If we could maybe add Melanie Barton to our list of speakers for our next meeting, I think that would be great. And I think then we would have kind of gotten some great knowledge to set the groundwork for where we go from there. Is everyone in agreement to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Representative Stranger, sorry, I just want to make sure that you're still there, and if you have any questions or any more input.
Just thinking about the charge of the committee, is there any charge we could hear from like the CDC or DHEC or any health officials?
I think we definitely could hear from them. Hear from them on Monday is going to be totally different than what you hear from them.
Exactly.
It's such
Exactly.
a fluid. Every day it seems
It's
to be
different.
And I know that in several of the meetings I've listened to, the request has been made from DHEC for them to work with the CDC and give recommendations. For instance, busing. How many children can we put on a bus? And the answers seem to be at this point extremely vague because we don't know what the world's going to look like the end of July, the 1st of August. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to have plan A for a perfect world if we can put kids on fill up buses, and plan B if we can't, and then plan C if we're still having to adhere to social distancing.
Because I know just looking at the reaction to the proposed Greenville plan, they had several options, one being homeschool all the way to full-blown regular operations, and then staggered schedules in between. And, it's like, if you stagger it, you're just rolling the dice, as opposed to having a nice, logical plan A to plan B to plan C. So I think we're on the right track.
Well, thank you.
I think the key is going to be flexibility for everything that we do, because like you're right, Representative Felder, it changes from day to day, sometimes within a day. And so we just have to have open ears and a lot of flexibility, even in our recommendations. We might have to look at here's recommendation A for this scenario, here's recommendation B or C, because it's just that it changes so often from the health perspective of what we can do.
And I want to say I agree with you 100% on the broadband expansion, because that's something that needs to be done, that can be done.
And it will impact more than education, I think. And I think probably every committee that has worked in Accelerate SC has looked at the impact of broadband. So whether it's healthcare, economic development, education, cities and governments. So I think that's the common thread, that hopefully there will be funding for that in everybody's pot of recommendations, because without it, we're still going to leave large portions of South Carolina behind.
Yeah, it's going to be considered a quality of life issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a quality of life issue that we're going to be dealing with.
It's as central as electricity, almost, in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly ties into the infrastructure needs that we face.
Yeah.
Well, and there's going to be a lot of focus too on the social and emotional needs of these children. Those children that since March 16th, when they left school on Friday, they've not had that support of those school counselors, of those mental health, of those different therapies. These children are going to need a lot more services than I think we actually understand at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have answers for that yet.
Yes.
Okay. If it would be the will of the committee, then I think we'll wrap this up and we'll ask staff to check with speakers to come up with a convenient time. And we'll also determine whether that needs to be an online meeting again, or if perhaps that can be an in-person meeting, so that we can hear from these and have some additional discussion. I am available at any time if I can assist in any way. I'm sure you each have my cell phone number. Feel free to reach out. I'm available between talking with the unemployment office and talking to constituents that are still struggling with this. But I will say, as a state, I am so very proud of what the state has accomplished. I think the governor has done a wonderful job bringing in some very, very smart people asking for guidance. I know our restaurant industry is very pleased, even though, of course, they would love to throw their doors open to any and everybody, but at least they're open. So I do see us moving forward and coming through this. And just like each of you, praying that what we're hearing is going to be accurate, that the summer months and the heat will hold back this virus. And by the time that the weather changes to cooler temperatures, we'll be very prepared for it and we'll have a lot quicker response to it. Anything else from any members of the group?
No, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
May I ask some clarifying points before we end,
Yes.
just to make sure I have everything right? I'm going to be looking, if I heard correctly, maybe the first option would be Wednesday around 10:30 to accommodate some members' previous commitments. But if Wednesday at 10:30 doesn't work, maybe later Wednesday afternoon or anytime Thursday around 10, 1 o'clock.
Later Wednesday afternoon would be better for me, because I don't know how long I'm gonna be meeting with the superintendent and the chairman of the board next week.
If we did Wednesday at 1, do you think that might work, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, that should give me more than ample time.
Okay, we'll look for 1 o'clock on Wednesday or 10 or after on Thursday.
I can't, Thursday afternoon, I can't meet because I have meetings. But thank you.
1 o'clock Wednesday or 10 o'clock Thursday. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
And I will be sending in a separate email to all of you the Accelerate Ed report that came out yesterday. I believe the superintendent has issued a spending plan that she's going to submit to the Accelerate SC. I'll send that to you as well, and also that document regarding the regulations that we mentioned. So be looking for an email sometime today, and I'll have all that in there. And if I missed anything, please let me know, and I can add it to my notes.
And who? Let me ask this. And who are we inviting on this first day besides the superintendent?
Yes, ma'am. In addition to the superintendent, I have on my notes that we want to invite a superintendent from a small district, preferably Williamsburg, a superintendent from a larger district. If I may, I would recommend perhaps Charleston, because Greenville's had a significant presence on Accelerate ED.
Yes.
The chairman of the board plus a deputy superintendent. And I think it might be good to hear from a large district like Charleston. But of course, that's certainly up to the committee. And then
that's fine.
I was going to ask the governor's office if they could provide us with the information or a name to discuss broadband. And that may be Ms. Barton as well, but I was going, after Mr. Alexander's comment, ask if she could make that meeting as well.
Very good.
Sounds good.
And the only thing I'd like to add there is if you would share with Superintendent Spearman so that she would be prepared. In her comments, I would like some discussion about the student accountability, about what are we doing for those children that we have not heard from since March 16th?
Which, yes, ma'am.
What would be interesting, Madam Chairman, is that maybe give her our 5 areas of interest, which she's already reported on, so we can hear from her about those 5 areas of interest that we've just subdivided into.
Yes.
Just give her that list so she can start focusing in on those things. So because sometimes Madam Superintendent can go all over the place. So if we just give her these 5 areas in addition, but make sure she touch bases with those 5 areas there. And that'll help us really. That'll help us out a lot too.
Exactly.
Let me clarify one other thing in my mind. Did we say that we were going to put out a request to districts concerning young people that have not been heard from since March the 16th? We were going to ask that?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should ask the superintendent that, yeah.
Well, I hate to blindside her with that when she comes. If we could go ahead and make the request of her, and she could go ahead and put the request out if it hasn't been made already.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Right. It has been made.
Give us an update on that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then she could give us an update on it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree.
Is there anything else for the good of the committee this morning? Again, I want to thank everyone for participating. I apologize for my technical difficulties. Evidently, it doesn't matter where in the state. If it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. So I do apologize. And that could be the error on my part as well. But I do want to thank you each for being here today. Again, I want to thank staff. I know that a lot of effort has been put into learning this new meeting format. And I think we're all dealing with various meeting formats with different committees and interest groups we serve on. So I do appreciate that very much. And again, I want to thank the speaker for joining us this morning and giving us some insight as to the charge of this committee as we move forward. But again, I want to thank you. I'm here willing to discuss at any time. Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.
You too.